Australia, one of the richest countries in the world. One of the safest. It has world-class cities. A healthcare system envied across continents. It is also one of the emptiest. Just 3 people per square kilometer with a coastline that stretches over 25,000 kilometers. To put that in perspective, Russia and the United States, which are also massive and sparsely populated in parts, have over 8 and 36 people per square kilometer. But if you want to live here, not visit, not vacation, actually live here, raise a family, you're in for a rude shock. Since 2022, Australia has entered a per capita recession. Real wages have fallen significantly. Household debt has surged past 200% of income, one of the highest in the world. And the one thing that has hit Australians hardest? The cost of living. Specifically, the cost of having a place to call home. This is the dark side of Australia. And it's not just an economic problem. It is a crisis of national identity. Since the 1950s, owning a home wasn't just the goal. It was the reward. While Americans chased rags-to-riches stories, Australians pursued something quieter. A detached home in the suburbs, a front yard, a barbecue, maybe a Holden in the driveway. They called it the Great Australian Dream. It was about security, dignity, and generational wealth. And for decades, it worked. Home ownership soared to 71% by the late 1960s. Families passed down houses like heirlooms, and buying a home wasn't a luxury. It was expected. But today, that dream is collapsing under its own weight. In 1992, if you bought a modest home in Sydney for $500,000, it's probably worth $2.5 million today. But if you were born after 1992, you probably don't own a home, and you might never. Here is why. In 1970, Sydney's average house cost $18,700. The average salary was around $4,200. That's just over 4 years' income. Today, the median home price in Sydney is around $1.5 million. That's 80 times higher than it was in 1970. In comparison, the median income is just $75,000, only 17 times what it used to be. So now it takes more than 20 years of full income, and that's before taxes, rent, food, or childcare. Even saving for a 20% deposit, roughly $300,000, takes most households 8 to 10 years minimum. And by the time you save up, the prices go up again. It's a treadmill, except the treadmill is speeding up, and you're running in sand. This isn't just a Sydney story. Brisbane, Perth, and Adelaide show the same pattern. Since 2020, housing prices in these cities jumped over 50%. Wages, only 12%. As a result, Australians are spending more, earning less, and falling behind faster. In Sydney, median rent now exceeds $3,000 per month. That's $36,000 a year, just for shelter. In Brisbane and Perth, it's not far behind. Even regional towns, once a safe haven, are catching up fast. Every rental listing sparks a bidding war. Dozens, sometimes hundreds, of applicants flood in. You show up to an inspection, and there's a line wrapped around the block. The competition is fierce. The outcome? Uncertain. On Facebook groups, renters share horror stories. Offers rejected. Landlords raising rent mid-lease. Entire families evicted because someone else offered $50 more. And the desperation has got surreal. A landlord in Queensland was renting out a shipping container for $200 per week. Another was offering a veranda as a sunny private room. This isn't a housing market. It's a scramble for shelter. But Australia has plenty of land. It's roughly the size of the United States, minus Alaska. But almost 90% of the population lives in cities, and 40% live in just 2 cities, Sydney and Melbourne. So yes, there's space. But everyone wants to live in the same few places, where jobs, education, and infrastructure are concentrated. In 2023, the country completed just 170,000 dwellings, the lowest in a decade. Meanwhile, the population jumped by 740,000, mostly through immigration. Cities like Melbourne are 6 times larger than London, despite having half the population. Similarly, Sydney metropolitan area is 3 times larger than Berlin, and if you consider Greater Sydney, then it is 14 times larger than Berlin. That's because instead of densifying, Australia embraced suburban sprawl. Low-density, single-family homes that stretch the city outward. To make matters worse, Australia's new home development approvals are alarmingly low. Just 15,000 dwellings were greenlit last month, barely half the number needed to meet demand. It's no surprise then that Australia is on track to build 40% fewer homes than needed to meet government affordability targets. Australia doesn't just have a housing crisis, it has a housing production crisis. But broken supply is only half the story, because the market isn't just stretched, it's tilted in favor of one powerful group. Let's talk about the elephant in the room: real estate investors. In Australia, it's easier, cheaper, and more profitable to buy a second home than it is to start a business. Why? Because of negative gearing. This policy allows investors to offset rental losses against their income taxes. So if you earn $100,000 and lose $20,000 on your property, you pay taxes as if you only earned $80,000. Sound absurd? It is, but it gets worse. When investors sell, they keep more of the profit, as Australia also offers a 50% capital gains tax discount. And if the property is held within their superannuation fund, the effective tax rate drops to just 10%. This makes real estate the most tax-advantaged investment in the country. No wonder 1 in 5 Australians owns multiple properties. And more than 50% of all investment properties are negatively geared. Billions of tax dollars are burnt every year subsidizing investor losses. And first-home buyers are competing with leveraged investors who don't care if the property actually earns income. This isn't a free market. It's a rigged game. All this speculation might make housing values look good on paper, but it's draining the life out of the real economy. Outside mining, Australia now ranks lowest among the OECD nations for business investment. It spends just 1.86% of GDP on R&D, far behind developed nations like the US, UK, and Germany. Productivity has flatlined for a decade. GDP per capita has been falling for 2 years straight, the longest drop in modern history. So while the headlines might say, Australia is growing, what that really means is, more people are working harder to make less. Over the last 30 years, every government has promised solutions. None have delivered irrespective of the party. In his second term, Anthony Albanese has promised 1.2 million homes in 5 years. Critics aren't convinced. Where will the builders come from? How will we fast-track zoning? And why are the same tax incentives still untouched? Because here's the truth. This isn't about one party or another. It's about decades of policies that now only reward the rich, punish laborers, and discourage enterprises. And the people who pay the price? Young Australians, renters, and first-time buyers. Australia has long been known as the lucky country, a place of prosperity, opportunity, and stability. But if these trends keep going, it won't hold that title for much longer. It'll become a country where luck is only inherited. A country where owning land is rewarded more than creating jobs. A country where entire generations work hard but never get ahead. But it doesn't have to be this way. People can fix this. They just need the courage to challenge the system and ask the right questions. Focus on key solutions. End negative gearing. Scale back capital gains discounts. Unlock land faster. Build more high-density homes. Rebalance taxes toward productivity, not speculation. Because if they don't, the dream that built this country will become the very thing that locks its future generations out of it. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.